Oops, sorry. Okay, I'll give it a minute while everything else sets up. But thank you for joining. I know it's fairly bright and early in Pakistan at the moment, being 9 a.m. So thank you for spending your morning with me and possibly your breakfast. Let me start by sharing my screen. And Ms. Bell, if there is questions in the chat or anything like that, I currently don't have a second screen, so just shout out for me, please, and let me know.
Sure,
I'm more than happy to take them as they come up.
Definitely.
So with that, let's dive into some of the content for today. And one last check, Ms. Bell, can you still see my screen? Can you see this?
Just a second. Yeah, I think. Yeah. So yeah, that's.
Is it full screen? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Sorry, I should have checked that before. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Yep. So as Ms. Bell mentioned, we will be talking about building your own knowledge mining solutions. So kind of building and adapting your own search engines today. So a very quick introduction. My name is Akanksha Malik. It is also written at the bottom. I am a data consultant based out in Melbourne, Australia. I'm also a Microsoft AI MVP, and I talk a lot about a lot of their AI offerings that Azure has in place, predominantly those that are built towards more of a accessibility point of view, from whether that's building accessible products or leveraging kind of low code or pre-built applications to make sure more and more people can get access and be able to use AI in their day-to-day lives, which is very similar to what we're going to be talking about today and how you can implement some search engines into your daily life. So the agenda for the next little bit is going to be what is Azure Cognitive Search? What is this new tool? If you've never come across it, we'll do a quick deep dive. How is it used? Why is it used? How can we actually ingest some data into it? And what do we do with it to actually set it up for building some search capabilities on top of it? And how also do we build in some AI enrichments and capabilities within our search capacity that this provides us with? So that's kind of the next little bit what I'll be focusing on. I'm going to try and keep an eye on the time as well, so I don't kind of keep taking over the rest of the day. But let's take a step back. Search engines and just the capability to look up whatever you want whenever you want has become very prevalent in our lives. It has just become so commonplace that you don't even think about it as in what you're actually doing when you're searching something. So let's take a step back. When you go into Google, what is exactly happening? Let's try and think through something. So if you think about it, it's just a really, really, really big database. It's almost like a library that you kind of actually manually can go into physically and look for something, except it's just a lot quicker and you don't have to go leave your house to do that. But when I look for something, for example, a hotel, it'll actually go crawl through that whole database and be like, okay, I need to be in the right area of things that'll have things associated to hotels. And then it'll index it. So being like, okay, well, now I'm here. There's a lot of different content about hotels. What exactly am I talking about? What am I looking for? Let's index all the different topics and stuff associated to it and then be able to rank them. So if maybe within that index, I could be looking for hotels that are 4-star. So that's a specific index. What is the star capability of a hotel? And then I want to be able to rank them based on those stars. And that's what I want to see as a returned search when I put a query into the search engine of, well, I've looked for hotels, rank them based on these things, show me the best one based on what I'm looking for. So that's what we're going to be talking about. All these different things that are going to happen in the back end and how you can use that for your own data. The word index, it's going to be a word that comes up a lot through the rest of the session. So just bear that in mind and we will talk a lot more about it. So what exactly do I mean by index? We will come to it. Sorry, there was meant to be a little poppy up bit. That's going to skip through. But Azure Cognitive Search. This is basically a service that Azure has built so that what you can do is take things like the Google search platform or Bing search platform, make a very similar use case available to your own data sets. So it's really making it adaptable to what you want to be able to use and really customized to your own data that you have existing within your own context, or whether it's enterprise or even your own website that you run and you want to be able to have some search capabilities on it. It allows you to be able to do that. And there is a little bit associated to cognitive search in terms of words and pieces and bits and stuff. The biggest thing is going to be pricing tier. It's not very cheap outside of a free offering, which for a very small use case, that works really, really well. The rest of them, they do start tending towards a enterprise use case. And the context of it is there's a lot going on in the background for this to be as efficient, especially when it's basically being offered as an out-of-the-box product that you can just plug and play into your data. So there's a lot of different associations to it. And it kind of comes down to basically having a look at what your size of data that you want to be able to search on, how quickly you want to be able to produce results, and how quickly, or sorry, not even how quickly, but how much new data is coming into your database. How quickly do you want to be able to search on the newer data that's coming in? So those kind of different parts and pieces need to be considered when you choose a different pricing tier within your service. There's partitions and replicas. So if I go back to the previous slide, you'll notice those up here, that these are a specific part of the pricing tier. What exactly do they mean? So a partition basically allows your service to store and search through more documents. So it just puts them into different more buckets. And replicas allows your service to handle a higher load of search queries. So if you've got a whole lot of data and it's just really, really big size of it, partitions will basically make sure that they're really equally spread out and the workload is distributed in terms of actually storing. And then replicas will basically allow, so if you've got a lot of users actually hitting up the search at the same time, it'll deal with that search query kind of request at the same time. If you are in enterprise, SLAs are probably something you are quite comfortable and familiar with. What that means is a service level agreement. So this is just from a Microsoft perspective of them assuring you that, hey, our service level agreement is 99% that your service will always be running. And to achieve that 99% SLA, if you just want to have a read-only search, you need at least 2 replicas. And if for a read and write SLA, which is 99% uptime, you need 3 replicas. Just something to mention. If you are looking for 3 replicas, going back to your pricing tier, you will need at least a basic pricing tier to begin with. So I've talked a lot. Let's have a bit of a demo. Let's have a look at exactly where this sits. What does this all mean? Everything I've kind of gone through and talked about. How do we create the service? Let's do a little bit of that. So portal.azure.home. This is your homepage. This is where you can go to actually create any services. If you've never been on Azure before, it's no problem. It is a fairly user-friendly environment where everything kind of stays the same. So once you start building one thing, it becomes easier and easier to build newer and newer resources because the UI stays the same. It's kind of easier and nice to use. This is going to sound a bit funny, but you search for search, which will basically find you cognitive search as a service, and you can hit create to create a new one. So every time you create any new resource within Azure, it's always on the top left corner. And you really don't need a lot of information or kind of pre-prep to be able to create a new service. You need to assign a resource group. You can create a new one directly or choose one that's already existing. I've got one here called knowledge mining. And what a resource group, if you haven't come across it, essentially is just a bucket. If you're creating a new project and you want to keep everything associated to that project in one place, so that once you're done with it and you never want to use it again, you can just delete all the resources attached to it. It's just grouping everything together. It's just a way of organizing things in your cloud environment. Give it a name, whatever you feel like. Let's call this a demo test. Will that work? Has that been taken by somebody else? Nope, that's okay. Location. It doesn't really matter what location you choose. The recommendation usually is somewhere near enough to your own current location, just in the sense of how far away things are being pinged to store things and things like that. The only thing I want to mention about location here is if you do want to add any AI enrichments into your services or anything like that, make sure whatever other things you want to add in, for example, it would be something like Azure Cognitive Services. Those products also need to be available in the region you pick for your search service. So just have a check about those if that is something you want to look down the line. Anything you want to add into the service, that needs to be existing in the same region that you have picked for your search. I can leave that as that. And here is where you can change your pricing tier to whatever pricing tier is required for your use case at that time. But that's essentially it in terms of choosing and picking and stuff. So if I leave it at a standard, so in a standard, I'm allowed go up to 12 replicas and partitions. On the next slide, you can actually choose how many of up to the 12 you want to go to. And then you can see the price changing very rapidly when you go up and down. And you can also have, it also has a checklist of the SLAs. So if you want your 99% SLA for reading and writing, you can go up and down in your replicas. But yes, that's essentially how you set it up. You just hit review and create. It'll do all the little checks it needs to do. It'll check if everything seems right, and it'll let you hit create. That's it. That's how you set up a search service. I'm not going to hit create because I've already created one for this before. So this is kind of what the home page will look like when you kind of come in. This is your search service. And how do we actually use it?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yep.
Is there a capability to sort of integrate all these services to Power BI or Power Platforms? You know, in terms of search, sort of in a concept of search and analytics, right? It's like when you sort of want to search for specific insights. Would there be a possibility to sort of hook this up with, Power BI or Power Platforms applications?
That's a good question. Actually, I'm not 100% sure about specifically the Power Platform applications, but in terms of actually connecting these things up at a later stage, there are APIs that this provides you with that can directly be connected up. So I've seen those. I haven't actually seen a direct correlation to the Power Platform. I can have a look and get back to you afterwards.
Sure.
Okay. So jumping back in, let's go through a bit more theory before I start throwing more words and stuff at you. But that's essentially us having created the service. That's what that goes into setting it all up and what you need to know beforehand. So we've now set up the service. We need some kind of data to actually run our search capabilities on top of. So what do we do with that? How do we connect our data? There's two ways to do this. There's the push method. So this is basically done programmatically. Any data source can be then used to actually push towards the service itself. So this would be very much a SDK that you connect directly to, and you'll have to write code, whether that's C# or whatever, Python, whatever else you're using. And the main takeaway for this is that it's low latency. So if you know for a fact that you need to be able to have new data coming in very, very quickly, and then immediately being able to add search capabilities on top of that, this might be the way for you to actually push your data into the service. The other option is the pull method, where the service, so the actual cognitive service, search service, will actually go and pull your data into the service itself. So this is all automated. It's through the UI interface where you can go click a few buttons and just attach it all up. But then the downsides of it are the fact that there's limited data sources. It's essentially easiest if you already have your data within Azure that's already been fully automated and set up behind the scenes, because there's a lot more, obviously, back-end work that goes into making it an automatic upload. This is something they're still working on. There's more and more data sources actually being uploaded and added in to the service, but those are the two main methods. What I want to point out at the moment, the last I checked, you need to be able to, you have to pull your data into the service if you want to be able to do AI enrichments. I don't think that's been pushed through on the programmatical method of pushing your data into the service. So just something to think about. Index versus indexers. So I told you index was going to be a word that we come back to quite a lot throughout this. So what exactly is it in context of a search engine? So an index is a table, and an indexer is basically something that will put the data into the table. So if you come from a data background, this is essentially a exact same thing as a data schema in SQL, for example, and an indexer will just actually populate the data into that table. An And another example, if you don't come from a data background, if you think about your kitchen, there is a schema for your kitchen. Every single place in your kitchen has a reason. This cupboard is used for plates. This drawer is used for cutlery. This one is for glasses. Everywhere has its reason and what needs to go in there. There's actually like a label somewhere saying pots go in here or plates go here. The indexer in my kitchen is usually me at the end of the day when dishes have been cleaned, that I need to go put everything back into its right places. So that's essentially what it is. There's a schema, which is your index, and an indexer will go push the data into the right places so that when you are searching, you can actually pull them out from the right places. So that's what those two big things are. There's a few attributes to an index, and these are basically what allow, these are features you can kind of turn on or off in the service that add to your search capabilities. So an index, every kind of schema points, for example, every column will have these attributes associated to them. There will be a key, an overall key for the index. A retrievability essentially just means that when you search for something, it'll come back. It's something that you can retrieve in your search as a feature. Is this specific column filterable? Can I filter on this based, so for example, that hotel example, I can filter on how many stars or how many beds a place has. Sortable is again very similar to that. Can I sort based on maybe price? I want to see this cheapest hotels before the most expensive ones. The next one is facetable, not face table. I said face table for a very long time. But facetable, it basically is just another search capability where you can kind of pivot on different parts of it. And searchable. This is, I mean, it seems fairly nuanced, but it's basically what you put into your search engine. Is this going to be a feature or a column that you can actually put values against to search from? So those are the main key attributes that are associated to an index. I said a lot of words, but let's actually put this into practice with another demo to see actually how we can pull our data into the service. How do we create an index? How do we set all this up and give it all those different attributes? So, excuse me. Now that we have a service, we can hit import data. So this is basically pulling our data into the service. Like I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of different data sources here that have been mentioned. So as I mentioned, they're trying to continually build out the service. There are more and more preview data sources coming in, but most, like if you have your data sitting in Azure in kind of the go-to places, it's almost going to be likely that you already are able to access it directly. For just now, for an example, let's use the one I've already pulled in. So this is a Azure SQL database one, and it's a real estate example data set. So basically this has data about houses and how many bedrooms and how many bathrooms. Has it got features like there's a backyard or what place is it in and what's the price? So let's have a look at how we can create a search engine on top of the data like that. I'm just going to skip this part for now. I will come back to it. We will add some intelligence into it, but for now I'm going to skip it just so I'm not kind of talking about way too many things at one time and confusing everybody. So this is what it pulls in. So it's already kind of identified your index for you. So this is the index. We're setting up our schema, and every different field will have all those attributes that we just talked about. And you can turn them on or off based on what you want your search engine to be able to do and what you need it to be able to do. A few things, let's go through it for me to highlight. So obviously beds, those are something that you want to be able to retrieve when it comes back from a search query. But you don't want that to be a searchable field. And usually what you'll notice is if it's a type of integer as a field, the ability to search goes away. And that makes sense because if you're starting to put in 4, like you know what you mean by saying 4 by 4 beds. I want to see houses with 4 beds. But if you just put the number 4 in, that is just too vague of a entity to put into a search engine for it to find anything. So it's usually kept to variable values that are string values. You can actually turn some of them off. So if, like, for example, the status, you maybe don't want values to be searched of available, under offer or anything like that. You can take that out. And you can go and change whatever you want about this. So whether a value is something that you can filter on, which is probably going to be beds. Like I want to be able to only see 4-bedroom houses or 2-bedroom houses and so on and so forth. The only thing I want to mention here is all of these features. Once you've set up your index, you can't actually edit them. The only editable attribute is retrievability. So basically, will it come back in a search query? You can turn that on or off once it's been set up, but you can't change any of the other attributes. So just be mindful. What I would recommend usually is when you're setting this up, use a really, really small data sample. So just a couple of rows to push through into it. See if it looks right, if it's doing what you want it to be doing, and then push the rest of your data into it. Because if you do get one or two things wrong in terms of maybe you didn't actually want bathrooms to be something you could filter on, you can't change that. You'd have to delete and recreate that index. So yeah, just be aware of that. And there's already a lot of AI enrichments kind of built into the product itself. For example, the fact that it can identify languages, it can identify a few other pieces and bits and stuff, but even just the fact that it's like identifying that these are the different languages and these are what it are. And you can also turn on suggester. So basically, when you're starting to type something into your search query, these are maybe features that you want, like once you start typing one thing in, the rest of it will fill up as well. So really similar to what you're used to seeing with Bing or Google searches, just made a lot more custom to your actual data. So that's everything I have to say, I think, about creating an index. And so again, I mentioned an index is just your schema. So this is just the outline, right? These are the things I wanted to be able to do, just telling it exactly where everything sits. And then I need to create an indexer. And the indexer is basically going to be something that will go and put your actual data against all those features and make sure it understands what different attributes all of those have. Essentially, an indexer can be set up at whatever schedule you want. Sorry, there's a cat that's just come right to my door, and I don't have a cat, so that's bizarre. But an indexer is going to be something that'll put your data into the right places. If you have data that's coming in, let's say, on a daily basis, you can set that up on a schedule, whatever custom schedule you want. If it's a one-off load, that's completely fine as well. So yeah, especially when you're creating a new one, I just want to reiterate that fact that you can't change your attributes other than retrievability of a search engine index. So maybe just do a really small once-off load, test it out. Once you're comfortable with it, it's doing the right things, the right queries are being able to put in and the right results are coming back, then you can actually go in and maybe set up a schedule for it to run on a weekly or whatever custom level basis you want to actually import your data into the service. And you hit submit, and that essentially is it. Once you hit submit, this is kind of what it looks like. Again, I've already done this, so I was not going to be making any chances today of testing the demo gods to see whether or not things wanted to break on me today. But you can actually go into the index and the search engine you've built and actually start testing things. So this is what was it? Is that real estate? Maybe I want a house with a pool. Let's see what comes up for a pool. Okay, so what you'll start seeing is it's gone through our data. It's found the right things of, okay, we want the word pool as a search. And then it's gone and actually ranked them in terms of what's the most likely result. So you can see the search score for every value that's come back as a result. And then we can start actually finding where exactly it says pool. So this is a flat and perfect for entertaining. Okay. It's got a heated pool. There we go. It does have a pool and it's in the description. And you can start kind of narrowing into your search, right? You can start saying, I want to just see the houses that have a pool and 2 bedrooms, or having 3 bathrooms is a necessary thing for me when I'm looking for a house. So you can start really kind of going in nitty gritty bits and stuff. But let's have a look at the fact where am
I?
Yep.
I think we are up on time. I think let me just check if the time's still fine. If you have still a few more minutes, I think you have like 15 more minutes. Yeah, you have like 15 more minutes, and then you can wrap up. Right.
Yeah. Sorry, I was like I thought it was 45 minutes. I swear I had time.
Yeah, I was just checking that. Yeah.
No, all good. I'm glad. Okay, no. Yeah, no, sorry, the talk, it was built for 45, so I was like, oh my God, I haven't done the AI.
Sorry to interrupt you there, but yeah, sorry to interrupt you there, but I was just like timekeeping on that.
No,
yeah.
That's perfect.
Thank you.
But no, this part, essentially, this is what wraps it up anyway. But the point was you can actually search in any language that you want. So I'm pretty sure the French for pool is piscine. It's not. It's going to be really funny if it isn't. But yes, okay, search score was a bit lower, but that's what I've deemed to be the best fit. And this has, yep, okay, this one's a lap pool, not a heated pool. But there we go. If you wanted to have a specific heated pool search, you can do that too. But I've searched in French, and it still is able to actually go and identify exactly what I want to be doing and looking for within the French description of the values. So a lot of different capabilities have already been built in terms of AI within the search, without even me having to do it, right? Like, so the language translations, all those kind of things are already there. But let's actually talk about how we can add in some AI into our enrichments. So similarly, again, if you want to import a new data set, so this data set, for example, let me show you what the data set looks like, is this folder. So there's a bunch of different files in here, and I kind of want to draw your attention to what kind of file these are. So there's HTML, there's an image, a PowerPoint, there's PDF, documents, there's more images, there's a JPEG, there's a text file. So it's a mix of different things. So this isn't just a SQL database or a table that you're used to seeing, which has data really perfectly organized or in a really formatted way. This is just information kind of dumped into a place. So this is unstructured data. And this is where you kind of do need some AI enrichment help to be able to search through things. So if you've got an image or a PDF document, it's not like there's words written into a field that you can search for. This is an image now. You need to be able to do OCR recognition to actually start picking out words and being able to do some translations on those and actually taking those out of an image into a text space that you can then search on. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to use this as our sample file. So I've set that up as a blob storage that you can connect directly to. I can actually show you how to do that. So if you choose Azure Blob Storage, give it a name, say test. You can choose what kind of data to extract. You're probably going to want all of it. And then if it's already within the same subscription and environment, you can actually connect directly to it. So knowledge mining files is the container I've set up, and there's some sample files, and that's it. I can just hit select and it's connected directly. It's not much more complicated than that to pull your data into this. So let's hit next. So it's just going to validate that. It's going to make sure everything is functioning and working. And this is where, this is a step we skipped last time, but we can actually go in and add some enrichments and AI into it. Okay, so at a base level, there are some limited enrichments already connected directly, which are your cognitive services. If you have custom AI built already within cognitive services, you can actually connect that directly, or if you want to build more or anything like that, you can go in and start pulling through anything else you want to be able to add into it. So maybe you have a data set that is full of images of people, and maybe those people are people that work in your business, and you need to be able to run facial recognition on those people and say, okay, well, this person is in this image, and I need to search through my database of all these images and just return images per person. You can go and train a model, a custom one, on cognitive services without actually having to build a proper ML model on your own from scratch. You can go and customize it to be able to understand that and train on that, and then connect it back into your search service, and then connect that into your database and have it ready to go without too much of actual coding involved, really, which is kind of cool. A little bit scary. Please don't use it in really, really terrible uses, which AI can go wrong very quickly. So anyway, adding enrichments, it actually tells you exactly what it can and can't do. So these are the different types of skills. So I'm going to turn on OCR because I know I have image data and PDF data and stuff like that. So I want to be able to extract people names, give me the organizations, locations. That's fine. Detect language. I don't think I need to be translating, but if you have information within a different language and you want to translate it from one to another, you can feel free to do that. There's a whole bunch of languages that are already available for you to translate it into. And if you have maybe content that needs personal like PII information, which you shouldn't be exposing into the wrong places, this is also another way to be able to search for those documents. And for the image ones, I want to generate tags and captions. So I want the AI to create a caption for every image, for example. I'm going to hit next. And I have already created this, so let me just do that. Okay, cool. And now we're back at that index stage. So we've said that, hey, I want some AI attached to this. That's great. And now we're back to building our index, which is, again, our schema for the whole data set, making sure this understands the different attributes things will have. Again, you can kind of go through what needs to be searchable, what doesn't need to be searchable. None of these things are really going to be things that maybe you don't want sortable stuff, but you might actually need that to be filterable. You want to be able to filter on a person or organization name within your data. Again, just depends on your context. Please make sure these are reflecting exactly what your use case is, because again, you can't edit those later. You can hit next and create your indexer, set that up as often or as little as you'd like. So you can set it up as a once off. Let me hit that again. You can set that up as a once-off job, an hourly or a customized kind of schedule that you want to be able to push data and get it to actually understand and put into the right places to be able to search on that data. And once you hit that, you just hit submit, and that's your search engine set up and ready to go. So an indexer can take a different amount of time, right? So for example, for the 5,000 values in that real estate sample data set, that took about, I mean, it was like less than 30 seconds, I remember. It was very, very quick. And that is essentially because it's already a structured data set. It's fairly quick for it to be able to do that. It doesn't take much more effort. Whereas this one, even though it's about 11 files, I think, 14 files, that took a little bit longer because it had to actually go through, build all that enrichments into it, make sure everything was tagged and appropriately searchable before it could put it into the right places. So let's go into it. Let's start searching some things. So if I pop back in to the data set that we have, maybe let's look at this image. So let's just look for red. So red is mentioned and the red color is a lot in this image. Will it give me back this image if I search for red? So, okay, and it's figured out that there's text in this image, which is gonna, just let me move that here so we can read this and see what it's being said. Okay, so it's actually gone through and picked up everything that's being written in this image, which is pretty cool. So it's saying artifact, because it's only seeing that much in the image, and it's going left to right and top down, and it's picking up every single thing that's it can see in front of the screen in that image. It's also got some tags that, hey, there's a person, there's clothing, this person is doing a presentation, it's understood that. It's figured out the fact that this is a public speaking context and that this is a podium. I would not have guessed that this is a podium, but the AI was able to do that. And there's a man that he's signing, there's indoor, that it doesn't seem to be outdoors. Like, it's figured out all those tags. So if you were to start searching for any tag like that, so if I search for podium or someone speaking, it will probably return this as a higher ranked image than one of the other images in this data set. And it's also created an image caption. So it's saying a man standing on a stage is the caption for this image. And you know what? That's a fairly accurate caption for this image. A man is standing on a stage, even though I can't see that stage. It's figured that out because it understood the fact that he was presenting something or public speaking. So that was pretty cool. Let's do a few more examples while we're here. I've got a couple more minutes left. Let's look at this photo. What's in here? So Satya, we did turn on kind of recognizing people. I wonder if it understands that Satya is somebody. It's fairly kind of a well-known person and has images labeled against him within the realm of the internet. So the first thing that comes up is so it tells you exactly where that store, like the metadata storage path, so like what exact file it's talking about. So you can connect up when you're connecting your API and stuff to actually pick stuff up properly and reply with the right images and stuff. But if we look at this image, yep, there is Microsoft as a organization name. It's figured that out. It has picked up the fact that in text it says Microsoft and Linux. It's figured out a lot of different tags that if you looked for maybe a human face or the fact that someone wearing glasses and it's a man and it's a business person, it's gotten that much at least, is doing a presentation. Picked up all these tags, and it's also
I'm just sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you. So you have like 5 minutes left. So if you can wrap up, the next speaker is sort of waiting, and then I'm gonna just sort of hand him over for his session. All right. Thank you.
Yep, no, that sounds good. So yeah, it's figured out the caption that Satya Nadella specifically is speaking into a microphone without me telling it that this is Satya Nadella actually in this image. So that is essentially how you can add intelligence into basically any different context within the search service and associate it back to your data set. So going back and wrapping this up. So in the structured data workflow, which was kind of our tabular data set that we saw quickly at the first bit, you have some sample data, you have a data source connection, you connect directly to it, you define your index and that schema that's associated to it, assign all those different attributes, you define your indexer, which will push all that data into the right places and make sure it has those attributes associated. And then you create and test it. So that's your workflow when you're actually working through and building a search engine with structured data. Similarly, for an unstructured data workflow, not much changes. It's still the sample data, you connect it up, you just make sure you add that little skill set part, which was us taking a minute to make sure we told it exactly what kind of AI enrichments we want. And then it's the exact same thing. We define our index and we define the indexer after. And then obviously go and create and test and play around with it and connect it up to wherever you want to connect it to and be able to use and leverage that. So as a recap, we had a quick dive into what Azure Cognitive Search is, how you can connect and pull your data into the service, what is indexing, how do you actually set all that up, how do you build your schema and your attributes, and how do we actually build an AI into our unstructured data workflows within a search context. So I hope you had a fairly good time with me for the last like 40-ish minutes. Thank you for listening. If there is any questions, I know we're running short on time, I think, based on what Miss was saying. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out directly. I am available on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing your morning with me.
Thanks a lot, Akanksha. And yeah, thanks a lot for like the specific demo that you sort of put up today. So yeah, thank you so much. And those use cases are quite interesting, you know, and then it's interesting to see how it's going to evolve over time. So yeah, thanks a lot.